And that, I think, is the theme that I'm going to try and kind of share. Because if you feel nothing, you do nothing. And if you feel lots, even if it's negative emotion, you do lots. And basically, in our world, it means people buy more. The ads you love to hate, the reason they work is because you hate them. The worst possible thing you can do in marketing is do something so anodyne and perfectly acceptable that no one actually feels anything about. It is better to upset people, okay, I'm just trying to make this as controversial as I can, yeah, than to do something bland that no one actually feels anything about. Yeah? I sort of have a sense that it's predicated on a left brain, right brain model of how people think and therefore how they make decisions. It's roughly 50% rational, 50% emotional. Yeah? And everything from Maslow's hierarchy of needs to insight, benefit, reason to believe, the way we write concepts, through to the big idea, in advertising, is kind of predicated on the following metaphor. This is the best metaphor I think I've come across for the current model of marketing. Marketing is a fist of a brand proposition wrapped in a velvet glove of emotion. So the velvet glove is there to lure customers in, and then we're going to hit them with why our brand is vastly superior to those other competitor brands and persuade people to buy. It's essentially a persuasion-based model that we've been operating. Yeah, and I know that's a bit of a simplification, but I hope it resonates. Fist of a brand proposition, the USP, wrapped in a velvet glove of emotion. It's quite seductive you think, yeah, it seems plausible. It seems really sensible. It's just not the way the human brain works, and it's not the way we make decisions. Along comes Daniel Kahneman, sort of now Nobel Prize winner for economics. He's the only non-economist to win it. He's a psychologist. And he's written, seminal book, Thinking Fast and Slow. Can I have a show of hands for who owns a copy? And I'm saying this very deliberately. Who owns a copy of Thinking Fast and Slow? Keep your hand up if you got to the end. One. Okay. It is a brilliant book. It gets a bit heavy after page 100, and it's sort of slightly repetitive. The better book, if anyone sort of is inspired at all or interested in this stuff, I reckon is Switch. Dan and Chip Heath, who wrote Made to Stick. They're really good storytellers. It's the same stuff, much more distilled and kind of applicable. And I'll sort of give you a couple of examples as we go. The other one, just before I forget, Dan Ariely, who's one of the kind of key thinkers at Duke University, has a free online course called The Beginner's Guide to Irrationality. And you can sign up, and I think they do it in kind of 8-week programs. And it's great. 8 weeks, it's all online, and then you get a test at the end to see whether you've been paying attention. I will be taking a test at the end to see whether you've been paying attention. And basically, along comes Daniel Kahneman. Okay, so we've got our fist of a proposition wrapped in a velvet glove. That's the current model of marketing. Then along comes Kahneman, and he says, well, look, there's a better way of understanding how the brain works. And it's what he calls System 1 and System 2. Okay, so the brain is split into one because it's the original human brain. It was the bit of the brain that was around for a hell of a lot longer. And it's the emotional, intuitive, and instinctive brain. That's System 1. In his book, Thinking Fast is System 1. Thinking Slow is System 2. So System 2 is basically the cognitive, analytical, heavy lifting bit of the brain. It's the clever bit. It's the bit that separates us from other animals. It's amazing. However, here's the rub. If you split System 1 and System 2 into computing power, System 2, the clever thinky bit, would be about 50 bits of computing power. And System 1, the instinctive, intuitive, and emotional brain, is 11 million. 50 bits of thinking to 11 million bits of feeling. If the fire alarm goes off now, and this is it, okay? This is the one thing I would love you to remember. We think much less than we think we think. The thing about that is it strikes me that our model of marketing, where we've had this 50-50, rational and emotional, that's where we've been going wrong. We have massively underestimated the power of emotion, and we have massively overestimated how much rationality, how much thinking goes into people buying. That's what I think needs to be recalibrated, yeah, in the model. And we need to basically, famous 5-star marketing is emotional, it's instinctive, it makes us feel something without us even realizing quite why. And all of that heavy messaging stuff, which we convince ourselves is what we're being paid to do by, we're spending millions of dollars. Surely we've got to actually, impart a message. It's not the way that anyone makes decisions. It turns out to be the post-rationalization. We are not a rational man, we are a rationalizing man. Yeah? Homo economicus is not actually, the way that people make decisions. It's homo emoticus. It's basically a better model of how we do it. We are quirky, we are, we're sort of predictably irrational. That's Dan Ariely's stuff. We are irrational, but we're kind of predictably irrational, and that's helpful. And what I'm going to do is kind of take you through some examples to kind of show you that it's not random, and it's not completely kind of unknowable, but it is different to the way we currently do marketing and market research. So if I may, because we're a market research company, my opinion, controversial though this is, it won't be the last controversial thing, I promise, the whole of quantitative market research is a system to edifice. We have been measuring what we can measure. We've atomized things, we've scaled it, we've asked people purchase intention and brand recall, and some of the classic kind of questions, the stalwarts in our kind of market research toolbox. But I'm afraid we've been measuring, for the most part, the post-rationalizations of emotional instinctive decisions. And I think the challenge for market research companies and buyers and users is, how do we measure system one? How do we measure instinct, intuition, emotion, and start to build models which better predict famous marketing from basically the models which have served us up to a point? It's not completely wrong, but it's been measuring the post-rationalization rather than the pre-cognitive kind of feelings. And one last thought before we get into the three areas, and there will be some audience participation, by the way, because this room is freezing. So for no other reason, I think we just need to get everyone jumping around a bit. But in behavioral science, there's this nice concept, which is basically that everything falls into either prevention or promotion. So basically, it's sort of fight and flight almost. It's this basic human condition. And if you think about your categories, things like life insurance is obviously prevention, and iPhones and exciting kind of apps are promotion, what I can do with it. My observation is that market research has been in the prevention industry. And my first boss at Unilever even said to me, slightly exasperated when I was getting overexcited about something, John, you have to realize our job is to stop marketing doing stupid things. And I'm afraid I take issue with that, because I think market research at its best should be about the promotion. It should actually be about helping marketing do famous things. And that is such a different attitude. And frankly, it also is much more interesting. You have to take risk, you have to encourage, courageous decisions. And I think what we have to do in quant research is try and find the tools to help courageous, kind of clients and marketeers do things that resonate and become famous, frankly. And they will always come with a bit of risk, I'm afraid. All right, I think it's time for our first exercise. I'm gonna basically distill the whole of behavioral science into 3 different lenses. It's a simplification, you'll have to forgive me, but I hope at least it'll be something you can remember and even use by the time we finish. The first lens is basically framing. The second is copying, and the third is feeling. So basically framing, this is the world around us. Copying, this is the world between us. And feeling, the world within us. Framing is basically context. No decision is made out of context. Context changes everything. Okay, and we'll come back to that. Social side of things, copying. We are social animals. The thing we do best as human beings is copy. We are brilliant mimickers, but social side, copying, social animals, and I think it's overlooked in marketing, getting other people to copy. And then lastly, feeling, pretty much feel nothing, do nothing, feel lots, buy lots. All right, so I'm going to start with framing. If everyone could stand up, indulge me. So this is, so stretch your legs. Okay, what I would like to do is, as a group, without sharing with anyone, we are going to basically see if the group knows how old Mahatma Gandhi was when he died. All right? And I am going to start counting from 66, and when I reach the age that you think Mahatma Gandhi was when he died, I'd like you to sit down. 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. Okay? If everyone can stand up, on average, 73 and a half. Okay? If everyone can stand up, exactly the same question. This time I'm going to count down from 90. 89, 88, 87, 86, 85, 84, 83, 82, 81, 80, 79, 78, 77, 76, 75. All right, great. If everyone can sit down. Basically, you've got two things going on. So the average the second time is probably 76. It's usually about 2 years different when we do this. And basically, you're fighting two things. The consistency principle. I sat down at 71. I better wait until John gets to 71. On the other hand, maybe it was older. Everyone else seems to be sitting down. And basically, it's anchoring. The idea that the number that you start at has an influence on your perception. And that was, it's a good test because it's the same question, and the answer is 78, by the way, so it's halfway between where I started. But it just illustrates that these things, context and anchoring, and these weird little nudges can make the most enormous difference. And I'll try and illustrate with a few examples. My favorite at the moment is Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce now sell more cars at boat shows than they do from car showrooms. Because when you're looking at $10 million worth of yacht, $500,000 on a car seems a bargain. I'll take two. And it is funny, isn't it? But it's so extreme that I like it as an example, because I think it's always when you take these things to an extreme, somehow it reveals the truth. And I think in pricing, we think of pricing as the one area where people are rational. In advertising, maybe, in the audience, there's probably a mixture, but I'm sure a lot of you would go, yeah, I can kind of buy the idea that really emotional advertising is the way to do advertising. But even, I'm guessing, some of the same of you who feel that might think, but when it comes to pricing, this is surely where people make value decisions and they're making more rational decisions. So I've got a little challenge, I've got a little example just to dissuade you and to try and prove that pricing is just as irrational as advertising or anything else. The Economist had 2 subscriptions on their site. Okay, so for $59, you could get the online content only, and for $125, you could get the online content plus the paper copy delivered to you, to your door. Okay? 75% of people choose the cheaper option. So Homo economicus is alive and well. Everyone's making a value-based decision. It's the same content. I don't need the paper copy. I'll take the cheaper option. Dan Ariely and his team at Duke University tried a little kind of behavioral science nudge where they created a middle dummy option. So now there are 3 options on the site. $59 for the online content, $125 for the paper copy only, and then $125 for the online plus the paper copy, and 80% of subscribers now choose the $125. Think about what that would do to your business model. I mean, it's an extreme example. 75% of people paying you $59, 80% of your customers now paying you $125. That's when behavioral science gets exciting. I think that's the power. When you get this stuff right, it can have enormous impact and consequences. And not just making brands famous, which I'm going to come on to, but I think just at the shopper side of things. I think shopper is an area where we spend vast amounts of time and money, but very little creativity or kind of cleverness goes into it. And we've been doing a whole series of kind of test and learn experiments, because although you have the principles, in the end you have to kind of do it for real to see which one worked. So we did a test where we took shampoo and we did $1 off. So that was the base. And basically sales were basically 1.4. So it went up from a base of 1 to 1.4, $1 off. The second sell was $1 off, maximum 4 per person. So that was the only thing that changed, just on the shelf, was $1 off, maximum 4 per person. Now it's 1.8. Then we did $1 off, maximum 8 per person. I didn't need 4, I certainly don't need 8, but now it's 1.8. 1.8. Sorry, 1.4 went to 1.8, now it's 2.4. So 2.4 was the maximum 8. And then we did maximum 12 per person, and it went down to 1.2. So, these things have I don't know if it's sort of bell curve, but there's a point at which it's optimal, and it works. And it's not rational. I mean, that's just irrational stuff. But I think there's potential for this. I'll give you a brand example in framing before we do sort of social. Nespresso. Nespresso is a brilliant piece of marketing. Yeah? Everything about that machine shouts cafe coffee at home. The smell, the sound, the way it looks. George Clooney helps as well, I guess, but but everything about it is about framing. You get it in an instant. And when marketing is done brilliantly, you don't need to explain it. It kind of explains itself. I just get it. You had me at hello. And that's, I think, the power of it. One research example, and then we'll go on to social. The research example is time pressure. All of you in the room have probably at some point done packaging research, packaging design research. And the classic way of doing quant research is we get the target audience and we put the pack in front of them and we allow people to sit, scratch their chins, and measure and give us their sense of how good this pack is, how differentiated, how much I like it, all of it. What we did is we took exactly the same questionnaire and we put people under time pressure. So they had 3 seconds in which to answer every question. I think it was between 3 and 5, depending on the question. Changed the result completely. And this was actually for Mars in pet food. And basically, every time they'd done conventional packaging research, it said that their pack was far better than the competition. And yet the competition were eating their lunch, literally sort of catching up and almost neck and neck. And when we did this test and put them under time pressure, it revealed that the competitor's pack was so much more instinctive. It was so much more emotional. It was a way better pack. And we've done it in about 8 or 9 categories now. Same thing. Put people under time pressure, because then you get the system 1 response, not the system 2 considered response, which just can lead you off in the wrong direction. Literally, it can be wrong. All right, so that's framing. Social. So this is copying. I'm going to do another little, because, it is still freezing in here. So if everyone could stand up, and this time I'd like you to find a partner. Okay? Just going to demonstrate copying. If you could find your partner, and if you could turn and face your partner, if you can turn and face your partner and hold them by the elbows and look lovingly into their eyes. No. Just hold them by the elbows. Okay? And I have a challenge for you, which is you have to get your partner off the ground as many times as you can in the next 30 seconds. Go. Brilliant. I love this game because it's also very culturally revealing, actually. So I did this in Finland. and I swear to God, they wrestled each other. I really thought someone was going to hospital. I did it in Brazil, where actually everyone immediately just starts jumping. And actually, you are closer to Brazilian than you are Finnish, okay? And I don't know if you noticed, but basically, you're there, looking at your partner, oh, hello. And you're sort of thinking, what the hell are we going to do here? And then out of the corner of your eye, you can see someone else sort of jumping, and you go, that's good enough, let's do that, okay? So copying is, Mark Earls wrote a brilliant book on this called The Herd, and he's actually got a book, I think, coming out soon called Copy, Copy, Copy. And the summary of the book, I'll give you the summaries of all of these, so you don't even have to read them. We're much less individual than we think, and we're much more influenced by other people than we would ever care to admit. And I think marketing, one-to-one marketing has probably been, the big idea in the last 15 years, 20 years. And I'm not convinced. I think it may have taken us off down a kind of a path which is interesting and seductive, but actually social. We are social animals. And getting people to see what we do and copy each other, I think is much more powerful than any one-to-one marketing in reality. The iPod, the brilliance, the marketing genius of the iPod was the white earbuds. So something that was essentially invisible became visible. We all knew, that everyone was, wearing, had an Apple. Red Bull, I think, is a great social brand. I mean, everything about their marketing kind of is social. It's almost social alertness is what they're selling, although the sense of, personal alertness. But actually, I think it's alertness in a kind of social setting. And I do think it's kind of overlooked and not really thought of how popularity begets popularity. David Bowie, famously, when he broke, in America, he basically acted like a diva because, it showed that he was already popular, and he paid people to come to his gigs so that it felt like it was a real buzz. And basically, fake it until you make it is kind of, it works. The perception of popularity is actually what matters. The sort of sense that something's on a roll, something's trendy. We just love it, we copy it. Because you don't have to think or worry about sort of social stigma or anything, anything like that. Now, when it comes to, marketing, I think, you should try and think about how to encourage people to copy what you do. And that's where the internet and, virality and getting people to do stuff, I think, is just brilliant, sort of genius. Movember is coming up, men kind of, moustaches for prostate cancer. Brilliant, utterly genius, clever, instantly recognizable thing. For those of us who can't really grow hair, it's a chance to try. Because it's for charity, you understand. And I think in marketing, one of the things I was going to share in market research was the classic concept testing. So one of the central principles of market research, quantitative market research, is you must ask me about me, and you must find the target audience, because that's where polling came from. That's where the whole of quantitative market research came from. You have to find the target audience and ask them questions in a very particular way. There is a problem, because it turns out, we are better at predicting other people's behavior than we are at predicting our own. And I just want to kind of pause and let that one ripple through your brain. We are better at predicting other people's behavior than we are at predicting our own. That is a pretty controversial statement, is it not, for market research? If it's true, that might be the reason why a lot of concept testing, A, flatlines, everything comes out about the norm, and B, is not massively predictive. And purchase intention, even TNS published a paper last year, which said there was really no correlation better than the norm for purchase intention actually predicting what happens in the marketplace. So has anyone heard of The Wisdom of Crowds? James Surowiecki's book, yeah. So prediction markets. I think it's hot. So we've been playing with these for years now, sort of since about 2005 when I read the book. And basically, the way it works is you just get a crowd of 500 people. So it could be, this room, times a few, and you play a game with people. So they're not the target audience necessarily, just a crowd of 500 people. And basically, you say to them, I want to play a game. I want you to imagine that you own shares in each of the ideas that we're going to show you. All you have to do, as each idea pops up, is say whether you would probably buy shares or probably sell. So it's your gut feel of what the population might do. So I think people will love this, I'll buy shares. I think people will hate this, I'll sell shares. And then all you do is you take your two piles and you say, which one of those probably sell would you sell all your shares in because it's the worst one, you'd lose all your money. And which one of the probably buy would you double because that's the one that would be hugely successful. And this little technique, which came out of polling, the IEM, the Iowa Electronic Market, has predicted the results of elections over something like 750 elections more accurately than the most accurate poll in each of those 750 elections 3/4 of the time. This weird little technique, which breaks every golden rule of market research, is more accurate at predicting what will be famous, what will be successful, than our current models of market research. Feeling and emotion, I think, is the gold dust of marketing, and advertising is probably where it shows itself most. And so what I want to do is kind of question, or just lodge even a little smidgen of doubt in your mind about the current model of advertising, which I know, again, it's a simplification, but I think of it as a triangle of plausibility. At the apex, it's engagement. The purpose of spending millions of dollars of your company's money is to engage people. This is the velvet glove. And once we've engaged them, we can hit them with the message, the fist of the USP, the brand proposition. And finally, we have to get them to remember the brand for which they've been engaged and have this message imparted. So the brand recall is critical. Engagement, message, brand recall is pretty much what every ad test measures. It's pretty much what every brief assumes that we've got to kind of persuade. It's not the way people make decisions. It is plausible, I grant you, and it seems even sensible. Seduction trumps persuasion. Emotion always wins over cognition in communication. Emotion and how people feel is what matters. And although it seems pretty counterintuitive, so I don't blame anyone for going, blimey, really? So you're saying that we should basically just, make people laugh in the ads. We should just do something entertaining, or P&G thank you mums. We should just, kind of make people feel, emotion. Yes. Yes, okay? And the evidence, by the way, once you start looking for it, is overwhelming that adverts, 5-star famous adverts, have almost no obvious overt messaging. They have very little persuasion other than making us feel something. And the reason it works, I think it's important to try and kind of almost have an explanation, because otherwise it sort of seems like magic, is when we feel something really positive about a brand or about anything, we ascribe all the things that the category that it represents, we ascribe good things to it. It must be a good one if I like it. I like this brand, it makes me feel good. You don't need to tell me any information. It basically just makes me feel good, and I associate it and assume that it's a good one. Yes. So instead of the USP, we are obsessed with the unique selling proposition. And every brief we write, what we're trying to do with the agency is explain the brand DNA and its utter uniqueness in a way that then their creatives can miraculously express it in an ad, which could only be for that brand. Yeah? I mean, hopefully this is familiar, we've all done it. The USP, in my opinion, should be replaced with the UHT, which is the universal human truth. Famous ads could frankly be for almost any brand. What you do is you get a universal human truth, like P&G did with Thank You Mums, or Cadbury Gorilla, if anyone's seen that, with Joy, and you attach and you do it executionally brilliantly, and you own it. The brand that does it first owns it. Okay? Famous ads take a universal human truth and own it. And it's not about differentiation, it's about distinctiveness. Okay? Now, I know I've thrown a few controversial kind of thoughts at you, so I will literally try and summarize. We are not a rational man, we are a rationalizing man. We think much less than we think. Distinctiveness, not differentiation. And you know what? Trying to persuade rather than seduce actively reduces advertising effectiveness. So emotion, not cognition. Seduction, not persuasion. Distinctiveness, not differentiation. Commotion rather than comfort. And System 1 research rather than System 2. Thank you. Okay. Heckles, questions, challenges. There's got to be a few. Luckily, I've only got a few minutes, and I can run, flee.
So then the question is like, how do you get to do research on the System 1, or like the emotional
so
side?
System 1 research at the moment,
Yeah.
I think it's developing.
Right.
Anything that is time-based. So IATs, are kind of a good example of that. When you force people to make quick decisions.
Right.
So anything like that is a good way to get System 1 and avoid the over-cognitive processing of System 2. Anything to do with faces. So allowing people to tell you how they feel by clicking on a face or facial coding. I mean, facial coding is still at the early stages, I think, in my opinion. It's not bad for recognizing smile, happiness. It's not great yet at recognizing some of the other sort of 7 emotions, but it's not bad. I think wisdom of crowds is a clever System 1 way, because basically we're using the social animal in us to predict what other people will do, rather than asking us direct questions. At the moment, that's the sort of territory of it. But I encourage everyone to sort of experiment and try and find out better ways of doing it. But it's also the model of interpretation. So it's not just the way of measuring it. It's then how do you measure it? Sorry, how do you interpret it? Because the advertising thing. I mean, I know a lot of research companies are now measuring how people feel, but they haven't changed their model of engagement, message, and brand recall. They assume that it's about a third. No, it isn't. It's about 100% or 90-odd% engagement and emotion. So you've got to recalibrate the model. Your model of interpretation has to change as well. All right. Go on, heckle, challenge. Yeah.
So it's fascinating. It's almost a no news is bad news type of take. But what would you say to somebody like Malaysian Airlines who's had some horrible things happen and people are definitely feeling things?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing for Malaysian Airlines, or how do you take that?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think of it, disaster scenarios, which is more the world of PR and classic advertising, but actually, it's famous. So let's just step through. Malaysian Airways is now famous. It is in the minds of every kind of traveller globally. Now you could say, for all the wrong reasons that no one's going to get on it. I mean, I know, yeah? But, a bit like when there's a disaster, if you, like Dell Hell, when Dell got that reputation and Dell Hell sort of, came out, Dell brilliantly actually then used, the complainers to become part of the solution. If you're creative enough and clever enough to use your infamy, if you like, because that's what it is. It's fame, but it's infamy, bad fame. I think it's possible, if you're brave enough, to turn that into a fabulously successful brand. But not just do nothing. So Malaysian Airways, I think, have to find some way of kind of going, suddenly making us actually go, yeah, it's just one of those freak things. Actually, we know, rationally, it could have happened to anyone, but we know they're famous. So actually, how can you translate that to your advantage? So bad news, it's scary, but I think it's fame. Make my brand famous. Anything that makes your brand famous, even if it's negative, is potentially gold dust. All right, enough? Enough controversy for one day. Thank you very much. You're a great audience.